welcome to the second episode of Your Biggest Fan, a cringe podcast where I give myself a shameless excuse to meet my favorite artists. Today, I'm joined by none other than Carlos Perez, or as you may know him, Carls from the Hipster Runoff. If you're somehow unaware of Carlos, he was voted the most influential hipster of the decade on Gawker for running a blog described as, quote, part relentless hipster scene chronicle, part relentless satirization of that scene, part shameless clickbait, part self-reflexive critique of the entire online economy. I should say up front that the task of figuring out what the fuck to talk about for this interview was surprisingly hard, mostly because as I reread his 2007 to 2015 blog, I realized that Carl's voice has been so deeply ingrained in my own worldview that it's difficult to separate my own thoughts from his. The blueprint for my use of social media to troll the art world was laid out by the Hipster Runoff's relationship with the buzzworthy music industry. I think for a lot of people, myself included, reading Hipster Runoff was such an influential presence in our lives because it was both an up-to-the-minute cultural news source and a critical reflection on that news. It was a one-stop shop for worldview building in a way that a lot of people probably use political podcasts to do now. What I'm saying is, once you spent years seeing the world through HRO shutter shades, you can never really take them off. It's a gift I'm thankful for, which is why I'm stoked to be joined today by the legend himself. Carlos, thank you for talking with me.
Hey, man. What's up?
Nothing much. Where are you coming from today?
Me, I live in San Antonio, Texas.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's where you started too, right?
Correct. Yeah. You know, can't escape your roots sometimes. Definitely. In a positive way.
Yeah. So my first question I have is probably the one that every Hipster Runoff fan is wondering, which is, where have you been? What has life held for Carlos Perez in the past 5 years since Hipster Runoff was auctioned to an Australian investor bro in 2015?
Yeah, I mean, it feels, I don't know, man. I mean, probably like now, you know, I have a normal ass, a good job or whatever, and definitely not in content, but I don't know if I feel comfortable saying. I'd tell you, but yeah, I mean, it's been interesting, kind of like maybe de-internetizing myself, and then, you know, all of the sort of like destruction that can cause in your own life as a content maker, you know, just maybe trying to like rehabilitate from that, and just, you know, what I'm not remorseful about anything I created, but like, I don't know. It's just funny to think back and like think about content creation as like something of like a compulsive out of body experience or something like that. And then it's like, oh, that's who you were. And I guess there's like a record of how you thought and what you thought, but it's like, it feels very different from how I would define myself today or something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I'm surprised to hear that you're not in some element of content creation. I feel like I go through looking at like everything around me thinking like, oh, maybe Carlos is behind that. Like maybe he's like anonymously created this thing or that thing. I suppose it just still haunts me. But it looks like you had plans to release a book titled Nothing Matters, but I couldn't find it. Do you still write in any capacity, or have you been on creative hiatus since HRO closed?
No, actually, I hadn't really written anything, and then like my a good friend, his dad died, and like I wrote him a letter, and I was like, damn, I used to do this, but I used to do it about like such stupid stuff, like, you know, like just kind of weighing that like thing about really being there for someone versus, you know, whatever collection of images and memes and photographs that like compiled into whatever monetizable. And like, you know, ultimately it's funny to think about like the scale of the internet back when, I guess that was like 2008 to 2012. And it's like, it really wasn't even like that popular. It just, you know, like on the traffic wise of today or something like that. But
well, every person had to like open their browser up and go to a URL.
Right.
It wasn't part of just this like automated stream where you have your phone already in your hand at all times since the moment you wake
Right.
up, and then you open the Twitter or Instagram or whatever you use, or TikTok, and it's just there at the top of the feed. They actually had to make maybe a little extra step because it was a blog.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I forgot where we were, but yeah, I mean, writing. Yeah, it's. I feel like somehow the era of blogs just rewarded being able to write, between 300 and 1,000 words, and I was good at that or something. But it's interesting, in terms of also my choice to opt out of it. It's like in hindsight, just I don't know if it's like the medium is the message or something, right? Like I feel like now it's like being 35 and seeing TikTok, and it's like I don't understand what they're doing on some level, right? But it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess that they're just like saying something, and like that's really all there is to it, like the YouTube boom, and like how there's all these YouTube celebs or like TikTok celebs, or what even celebrity and like success is in the influencer economy. It's just like, yeah, I mean, I happen to like have had my toe in some form of that for a certain amount of time, but it's like, I guess it can only really define you as much as you choose to, in a way, or something, right?
Yeah. So aside from using writing and like a actual practical sense to communicate with the people in your life that means something to you, you have been on hiatus as like a creative writer, right?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I really was trying to come into this completely cold, or like, I don't even remember. Like, that's the funny thing. It's like people ask me, do you write? And it's like, do you remember when you wrote this? And it's like, yeah, when you're in that type of writing, you're just basically like flushing something down a toilet every day. And like it either becomes something or doesn't. And then it's completely forgotten. And just like, the beating of that on Twitter, if you're not like, if you're not either like have an ego that feeds off of that, or if you find things incredibly important. And I'm not sure if my personality type either finds the aspects of culture or is maybe disassociated from like social change as capable through that mechanism.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think it's entirely understandable that you would take a break from that type of writing. You were quoted as saying something like, I've posted more words on the internet than most adult humans, which is very true. I was always in awe of how frequently you released, what I considered high quality effort posts, and basically saw it as like the gold standard that, I aspired to in my own work, starting with jogging and on through, Instagram today. I still feel like I'm trying to catch up with your level of productivity. I even wrote an essay in 2013 called Athletic Aesthetics, about how artists were no longer making these like grandiose masterpieces, but were using social media to just release things, kind of like we were saying, like flushing things frequently enough to consistently stay on top of their viewers' news feeds. I somehow neglected to mention Hipster Runoff in that essay, but it's probably the best example of what I was trying to describe. 6+ years is a long time to run a blog when you're alone, posting like 3+, I mean, sometimes even posted more than that times a day. How are you able to avoid burning yourself out for so long and continue writing at the pace that you did?
I don't know. I mean, I think, I valued my context, and like, there probably was some like, I was probably passionate about the culture and the music that I wrote about, I guess. It would probably be the true answer. And, sometimes, I don't know, I was thinking also about how, like, I think I do really value like the internet is like free speech. And, we're kind of in like the remnants of cancel culture or whatever. It's like, it is like a regulated context now. And like, I just feel like, I think maybe you and I can still remember when the internet was just like flat web pages, and like, you could really tell there were crazy people behind everything. And now it's like, oh, we need to find out, we should figure out that they're crazy people, even though like it's a tweet, a screenshot of a tweet or something, right? It's like, I don't know, it just felt like that very static layer of HTML, it was very clear that nothing was a reputable source, right? Like,
Right. Yeah, I mean, you definitely seemed. I was trying to reread as much of it as I could, and in the start of Hipster Runoff, it was like, I mean, you even had the MP3s attached at the end of the
yeah,
post. Still, it was that like almost like a earnestly promotional venture in the way that I read that you were trying to get onto Hype Machine
yeah,
as like that was like the end all.
yeah, yeah.
And it was for me too. I remember having a blog spot and just posting my like shitty photography and then being like, oh, and here's a digitalism MP3 at
Dude,
the end
yeah.
of it
I mean,
as a way to kind of like life hack getting on Hype Machine for traffic.
yeah, I mean, simple times. Then it's like, you see, Hype Machine like was an incredibly important source for that era, but then it's like eventually they had like a Patreon model, and like then you're like on the other side, and you're like, wow, those are some really smart, creative people who figured out this thing, and then it's like this timeline of like innovation, like even as real as we attach these digital memories, like this timeline of innovation is just coming to like steamroll it, like the rainforest or something, right? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
what that Hype Machine was pretty much made irrelevant. I mean, even in the time that you were running the Hipster Runoff,
Right.
it seemed like that mode of like even aggregating these individual nodes of blogs in this forest was coming to an end
Yeah.
in favor of like a algorithmically generated streaming services that would just kind of like tell you what music
Yeah,
to listen
yeah.
to based on what you'd already listened to before.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, when I do studio visits with people who have plans to embark on some big years-long project like what you did, I always tell them to at least consider some way that they could earn an income through it. Not like in the hustlepreneur sense, just to make money, but like more in the creative sustainability sense. Because if you're working on what's supposed to be a long-term project and you're not making any money from it, it's always going to wind up at the bottom of your list of things to do.
Damn.
So without a real system of grants in America like they have in Europe, American artists are usually doomed to just like procrastinate themselves out of making new work unless they can come up with an income stream alongside their creative output. I read that at the peak of Hipster Runoff traffic, you were making something like $250,000 a year, which is great. I mean, you probably should have been making more money. I suppose my question is, where was that money coming from, and how did the business end of Hipster Runoff operate?
I mean, I guess if we're applying this to art commerce lessons, I guess I could try to do the full Harvard business case. But
Yes, please.
I mean, from what I remember, but just like at the time, like advertising on web pages was at the highest possible like CPM. So the whole blog thing was driven by that opportunity. So yeah, so it's kind of just for every thousand visitors or impressions, you'd get $7, $25. So like there was kind of that carrot in front of the face
For sidebar ads.
yes, for sidebar ads. Like, and I think aren't they like horrible now? Like very cheap or cost per click are all of them now or something.
I think they're both cheap, and it's like totally ruined
Yeah.
especially the news viewing
Yeah.
aspect of being a viewer, where it's just
Yeah.
like constant pop-ups and videos playing
it's
alongside
like-
like dense text and stuff.
It's like you look up a recipe and then you read like about
oh my
a
god, the
person's-
fucking recipes
yeah.
are the worst.
It's really
of all
bad.
of them.
The recipe,
All the stuff off of Pinterest is
Yeah.
like impossible to read.
yeah. So I mean, there was opportunity, and like I actually had a friend helping me like with the business side, since I probably like honestly, my lack of desire to continue going probably cost me a really good friend in kind of like synergizing or like having him come on board, and then he had a vision for what it could be, and I was probably just burnt out writing content.
What time was this in the blog?
I don't know, maybe like 2010, 2011 or something.
Okay. So you had a friend who came on to
Yeah.
ghostwrite with you.
And or not ghostwrite, but no, he was just doing like business, like handling, I guess basically like all I cared about was like waking up and opening my laptop and screenshotting.
Pure poster.
Yeah, exactly.
Poster to your core.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then, he kind of, I guess there was opportunity there, and he kind of, got everything together and formalized the business end of it and kept those type of there's like in that, I guess in any scene, there's just the economy of like people that can make money off of it, or ad networks or different, I don't know, syndicates of commerce or something that like they I'm sure it's like with TikTok right now, aren't there all those like communes of content creators that they all live, just imagine that. But
hype houses.
Exactly. So
where they all like circularly reshare each other's shit or feature one another.
And then there's probably some guy there like in like Yeezys driving like a wrapped Tesla Model X and like he's like 44 and telling them how to make the right content or something.
There really is. I think there's a documentary about something like this I was supposed to watch, but yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I think I just pushed that, and I think even in my deciding to stop was just like probably a long-term failure. Like I think I was obsessed with like scale and infinite scale at the end or something. And I'm just like, oh yeah, things were just changing. And like, now you read about the podcast bubble or like a YouTube bubble or something. And it's like, yeah, it's just kind of the same thing over and over again. And it's like, some people have the self-preservation instinct to like pivot their content to like a new medium or to like recreate themselves or something. And I probably just like didn't have the energy or like the ability to think outside of doing anything other than like writing. Like someone once wrote like, when I stopped, just like, you can't just keep writing Helvetica on pictures and calling it art. And it's like, yeah, I guess they're right,
I don't know, man. Most artists just do the same thing for 50 years and then it goes into a museum. So I think that, maybe the internet has a different rubric that it grades repetition on than what the art world does. But so you had somebody that you were working with that was like helping you with like ads and SEO and
there'd be like ad networks,
nerdy stuff that wasn't posting.
Right. There'd be like ad networks and they'd like sell. It's like, oh, Hornitos is launching a new tequila and they want some cool blogs to like post to have their ads running on. And then, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's certainly a different, I don't know.
But it was mostly based on what you're describing here with another person kind of being in control of it. You were posting, this person was doing ads and that type of stuff. There is a separation of labor.
Yeah.
Were they telling you like, oh, by the way, maybe you should mention like Grey Goose in the next post? Or
I mean, there was certainly, I think like it was probably the very early sponsored post or something that I, I'm sure I would have had an ethical dilemma about the authenticity of my stream when it's like, I mean, on one aspect, maybe it's like, well, the whole point was to be able to get a sponsored post where they,
I reread that one post that you did where it was like, I finally got the American Apparel sidebar ad. I can't tell if I feel accomplished or empty right now.
Yeah. No, it's sorry, you're just triggering lots of memories. So feel free to just keep shooting whatever you want at me.
Okay. Well, the anonymity of the Hipster Runoff drew tons of interest and speculative conspiracies. I know for a while there, a lot of people thought you were Tao Lin, but it always seemed unlikely that a pre-existing celebrity was behind the project because, they probably wouldn't have enough time for the massive effort to post as often as you did. So, my feelings towards the anonymity that, you maintained throughout the project or for a while in the project was like, if it's just some random person, like who fucking cares what their name is, if they don't want to give it out, like what more meaning is to be gleaned from knowing that this 2,000 word post about attending an Animal Collective concert was written by, a complete stranger named Carlos Perez versus a stranger named Clayton Bigsby or whatever, any other name, So when you've read 1 million words by someone, you're already so intimately aware of them that the author's name is kind of an afterthought. How did you approach maintaining your anonymity while simultaneously putting so much of yourself out there at the same time? Were you trying to keep people at bay? Was it a way to drive traffic? What was it like being, the poster behind the mask for so long?
Let's see. I mean, anonymity, I feel like, I find it funny, just like, I feel like it suits my own personality to stay anonymous, and maybe, I don't know if those values like were even rational or something, but it made me maybe feel comfortable in what I did. But then it's also like, I could see how it was kind of unfair to like bully people. I don't know if bullying is the right word, but like, I have the protection of anonymity in certain ways, I could just rail on somebody and then it's like, I am this person. But I guess that...
But you were a known quantity too, is what I'm saying. Like, you had a URL, you had a Twitter,
right,
you had a site at which they could confront you about it. It wasn't just like, you're some omnipotent whisper in their ear.
Yeah, but I do think like I probably, even like as it bleeds into my own relationships now, even like with family or friends and stuff, I feel like I do put up like ridiculous walls, honestly, that are like oftentimes more effort to maintain, when there are also positives to not be anonymous or like sharing aspects of your life. For instance, I'll think of like writing for other websites, and there kind of is a push to like pivot yourself to like media personality guy. Like,
right, because you wrote for Grantland for a little bit, right?
Yeah. And like, it makes sense, but I just, then you can just become like guy like quote tweeting stuff and getting like 577 retweets or something.
Right. But do you think that there is a distinction there then between the pseudonym Carls and the identity Carlos? Like,
no, I mean,
in the practical application of like co-tweeting somebody or something, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it seems kind of similar to me.
Yeah.
It almost seems more to do with on your end than in the practical use of like people being able to say like, oh, I got retweeted by Carls versus Carlos or something.
That's pretty fair. I mean, I do think maybe, like, I guess the question always maybe was like, is it like, there was kind of a phase where maybe it became perceived as more of a news source or something that should like be regulated by certain standards. But then it's like back to just my lack of defining, whatever, just like, remember when like Thought Catalog didn't exist and everybody thought every think piece was like prolific or something? Like, yeah, I mean, those are the days, huh?
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
That world in a minute, but you eventually did come out as Carlos, right? Like, there was a point where you posted a picture of your face. You're in like a Panera or something. Yeah. So there was a conversion there eventually.
Yeah. I mean, I guess,
but it kind of went over without. I don't know. It didn't seem like it was as big of a deal as maybe the anonymity had hyped it up to be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess the end of the real message is nobody cares. Like, right? Like, they're just conversations we're having with ourselves, and we put something out there, and then it's like, it's not always our decision to like know what it's going to turn into. Like, even with the best intent or the worst, it's like, it's not up to us to figure out what's relevant or what's, like, speaking to the moment. It's like, you happen to have had this era or moment of like wanting to do something and you did it. And then, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's up to, I don't know, I could have just been another blog spot that got purged or something, right? Like, I don't know. Yeah. It's interesting.
Well, I feel like my friend Jacob, he ran a popular Twitter account called Horse eBooks that everybody thought was this like bot that was just like spamming these automated, flarf poetry type things, these tweets basically, and everybody thought it was a bot. And that was like the big push behind the account to follow it. It's like why it went viral. Like, oh my God, this, monkey on a typewriter can basically create tweets as brilliant of poetry as any other, living writer or something like that. And then people found out it was a person and they were so let down. But I feel like part of that is because people, when the source is anonymous, people are able to project into it whatever they want to. They can idealize it and, I suppose maybe make it more personalized, like, oh, that's just like my friend this person or whatever. It opens it up to a more sympathetic view, where I think once you have the finality of like, nope, it's this person, then it's like, oh man, the fun's over.
Right. Or like, yeah, they're just sharing themselves for the clout. Right. Like,
right. Then it becomes selfish or something.
Yeah.
Well, as a follow-up to the anonymity stuff, I think everyone I knew was really curious about your social life when you were running Hipster Runoff, because, probably we all wanted like you to be our friend who we could bring to a party with us to like roast people at the party or something. I read that you lived in New Orleans and Chicago and San Antonio, and also that you would occasionally like be in the same social company as musicians like Lana Del Rey or Ezra Koenig or whoever. What was the dynamic like between you and the musicians you would occasionally bump into? And how did running the blog impact your IRL social life?
Let's see. I mean, like, I guess like sometimes you get an email from like, buzzband@gmail.com or something. And like, then it's like, well, I guess I can hang out with them. And, I mean, it is interesting like, I think ultimately it's funny just to like, even my own perception of music at the time was for like social context or something. Whereas then on the other side, like, oh yeah, all these people are like talented artists in their own right or something. Like, and they somehow put together the complex thing that make a successful band, whatever the hell that means. And so then it's like, I feel like sometimes people, like certain bands, just wanted to like keep from getting on like roasted. But then, I don't know, other people...
They saw hanging out with you as a shield?
Maybe, or like contact or something, yeah.
Sure.
But then, I mean, some, it's just like, you just had like something of like, I don't know, I mean, like there is this... Maybe, like the movie Almost Famous, on like a very ridiculous, like romanticized, like, wow, I did that. I was behind the stage, and it's like, and the band knows me and I'm their friend. Like, I guess like that happened or something. But that, I feel like all those people are in like turmoil, and I'm sure it's stressful to like even be a fucking touring band paying like 8 people to like set up all of their lighting. Yeah. And I mean, it's very interesting how fragile all of that stuff seems when you're that close to it or something. And then,
Definitely.
Then they're also hyper, like maybe.
Well, it's a huge conversion to go from being, this guy in 2007 who's attaching MP3s to the end of your post to like ostensibly help the bands, to being this like feared warlord of the blogosphere that like could ruin you or something, and they're like inviting you backstage. I mean, that's a complete like glow up, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean,
something.
I feel like perhaps it was like some sort of validation that I wanted or something, probably on some like some subconscious level for sure, I think. But no, it was an interesting byproduct, and I mean, I'm sure you found yourself in very absurd context, but then you just like, even, I feel like I avoid talking about all this usually, because it's like, I could quantify and completely say like, oh, my life is like much better now. Like I have a better idea of who I am. Like I'm like, have better people in my life, and like I know what I should be thankful for and what I want. And it's like thinking back to something like that like is just very, very ridiculous. And it's like, was I pursuing not being myself aggressively, or was I? Is that like you said, a part of me that's like even more than I realized? So yeah.
I mean, aside from the bands, I feel like there must have been a bizarre. I'm just trying to imagine, like, if you were, let's say, hanging out in Chicago and you were going to, some bar in Wicker Park or something like that, and you walk in there, it's like every hipster in that bar probably read Hipster Runoff that afternoon or something like that, and then they see your face and they don't even know who you are. Like,
Yeah.
what was that? I suppose just more less about the famous bands and all that, but just the social aspect of being Carl's during that time, like just existing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was funny just to like do that, and then it's like if I lived with my parents for a while, it's like we'd go out to like eat at a chain restaurant every Friday or something, and I like that was more of the life I identified. So then it kind of is just like it is funny, just like there are these eras of like hipsterism or something, and it's like we're only like 10% of people even actually like hipsters, and then like the whole voyeur culture of it of like, yeah, sure, I owned a few American Apparel shirts, but I'm not full hipster, but I know what's happening, right? Just like, was I just an extreme spectator on like what was existing then,
Mm-hmm. So, excuse me. Let's take it back to 2007 real quick. You're a 22-year-old graduate from the accounting program at Tulane.
Right.
Am I correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So you're living in San Antonio. You're about to start the Hipster Runoff. What are your influences at the time? What type of stuff were you, either looking at because you loved it or because you hated it that made Hipster Runoff seem possible?
Man, let's see. 22 years old. I mean, I was let's see. I graduated college, was unemployed for about 10 months. And then I got a job like working.
Well, what was your college experience like? Maybe that's...
Oh, yeah.
we could start there and work out.
I feel like I had friends who were employees in American Apparel. Good friends,
Everybody worked at American
Yeah,
Apparel.
those were the days, I guess.
It was like a government work program for like a New Deal program for hipsters.
Right. And then
every city had one.
I guess there was like that proliferation of party photography kind of. It was kind of coming out of like the emo photography phase.
Concert photography.
Right. So maybe just like these strong images of like something happening somewhere else, like in these certain filters, and like captured like the gold lame like pants on a man or something, right? So like probably stuff like that, and maybe like blog house dance music, I guess we were pretty into. So yeah, I guess there was that, and then I had a job where I was paid decently out of college, and I just sat there for 8 hours a day and just started writing probably once a day or something.
And that was like an office
job, yeah.
Just
sitting in a server room, just like nothing to do. Like
What about Gavin McInnes's Do's and Don'ts? Were you mainlining Vice magazine like I was in the office?
I really wasn't. I've only, I don't know. I have like multiple jokes to make, but I really only got into Vice like a few years. I guess when I wrote for them for a little bit, but like probably like post.
Oh shit! I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Like after HRO, I did a stint on Motherboard. But then I was gonna make a like, Gavin, if like. On that Gawker poll that you referenced, like I remember I had a guy messaging me, and he actually created a bot to win that hipster of the decade. So
on your behalf?
Yes. So like, if you have issues with Gavin McInnes, at least like I built a bot to keep him from being like keeping that
further
keeping that
solidified in culture. Well, I always assumed that Gavin had some type of influence on you just because his do's and don'ts and your blog share this ability to describe cultural ephemera with such accuracy that it borders on cruelty, which is what I loved about it. I read a quote recently that said, one way that a writer becomes a writer is by cultivating, as a defense mechanism, a merciless eye for weakness. And the thing that you had an eye for was the ability to name these ephemeral trends in music and hipsterdom. And if you can just bear with me for a second here, you're responsible for the popularization of terms like alt-bag, authenticity, blipster, bloghouse, blogability, bro, chillwave, cool dads, entry level, gimmick, human meme, meaningful core, memification, mainstreamer, lame streamer, personal brand, rape gaze, slut wave, the tug economy. That's one of my personal favorites. Quirky, y'all, zany. So, I mean, to some extent, naming these things was a gift, because there is now a way to actually address them. These things that we would all see, but were just kind of, ambiently existing. But in another way, it seemed like, the second something was named, it was over. So then the hunt for the next trend or post response to it would begin. It got to the point where it seemed like everything in the alternative culture world had this corresponding hipster runoff term that you could use to describe it, where people could have complete conversations exclusively using the words you came up with, which is quite an accomplishment. I think it had the effect of making people self-aware of the things that were being marketed at them. That HRO was like the skeleton key you could use to unlock all the music and fashion and bullshit being advertised to you as bullshit. But I never knew if that was your intention, to like help entry level alts, or were you motivated to create this enormous glossary of the world for your own edification?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Why did you do what you did? Is the question.
I don't know. Just I just maybe at the time yearning for, like, I guess stringing together fabrics of like people's experiences, maybe. Yeah, just but it's funny to think about like culture and like how are we going to define cultural groups, like, 200 years from now, like talking about right now. And it's interesting to think that like where you said all that stuff, and it's like, for example, like the term lamestream, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's something that like I guess Trump has used recently or something. And I feel
the lamestream media.
Yeah, right. And it's like I don't know. I may have been one of the first people to type it on the internet, but like I don't know. I just feel like now words mean less than ever or something, or like like perhaps just we're all so confused because the definition of words like are not the same to everyone anymore. And like,
right.
Whereas even something like alt or something, but
that was the beauty. I mean, that was something even present in the hipster runoff, because you would create these like prefixes or suffixes for everything. So you could like take a term that you popularized and then like alter it according to whatever the newest trend was, wave, for example, like as a suffix, like chill wave, everything could be a wave then of some kind.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, but then like just speaking on behalf of somebody who hates everything on the internet, like about me, because no one's allowed to like anything, like that was going to happen anyway, man. Like I didn't need to, no, I'm kidding. Like, like you spend all this time making something, and I think that you're right that I contributed, but it is funny to think about that. Like, is inevitability just like, I don't know, like you think you have a funny tweet now and then you like search for it and like 10 other people made it during, like people
Sure.
during a debate or something. But no, I mean, it was, I'm not sure what, but
maybe
if we
Carlos,
wait, can I tie together a case scenario with the last two questions that popped up?
Absolutely.
In my head? Like one of my friends sent me, there's a girl that was in the Dirty Projectors named Amber Kaufman. Mm-hmm. And she recently tweeted, I think it was like a Sunday morning or something. And, my friend sent me this text with the link to her tweet that was like, Carl, like, We must demand justice from Carl's. I sure don't miss being called an out baguette. Um, and like on one, I think that she's like right. She probably didn't deserve to like feel how she felt probably when like her career and what she's doing is incredibly important to her. But then it's like on the flip side, it's like, do you miss context? Like, is that what I really provided to people? Like, whereas, I find it interesting to listen to like all these great songs on Spotify given to me through an algorithm. Like they always get it right on Discover Weekly and, but like there's really just no grouping of a scene or like we as people who identify as alternative, all we can do is like want universal health care now, right? I guess. Right. But like there's not that grouping of like, things that are still commerce, but still like acceptable to define our culture or something.
You're saying that your takeaway from that tweet is that it was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek gesture at the idea that even if it means being lightly ridiculed, I miss a time when there was like a discernible cultural group to belong to.
I mean, I think so. I mean, and it's like, yeah, I don't, in a way, but then that's also just like, man, was I just like ruining people's lives, like, or certain people's? and
I think you were being hard on yourself.
I mean, I think, but then if I were on Twitter now, I don't think it could like exist as it did,
Sure. Well, we'll get to that in a second. Maybe, I mean, I suppose what I meant to ask in that question in terms of like helping entry levels or something was just that there was something that felt educational about the Hipster Runoff. I think especially in, for me in the early days when I was reading it and I was just a mere art school college freshman trying to make sense of the kind of like the social world around me, that if you could have a term to describe these things, it provided me an entry point where it was like, oh, that's what that is. It's knowable to me. Now I don't fear it or something.
Yeah.
I suppose that I think that's how a lot of people felt about it, was like these especially entry level people, like, I was like, oh, these people who wear clothes like this or this music that sounds like this. Now it's like been demystified to some extent. It's more approachable now because this guy has, I think, lovingly made light of it. Yeah. I can see it now in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I guess I could see that it's like a gateway. Whereas like now it's like, if you're a mom and then, or like a dad as well, but like, if you see like an Instagram account with like a woman who makes her own like yogurt kombucha and like uses cloth diapers, like there is kind of a fear of like, maybe I'm not that person or something, and you can kind of like get over the whatever constructs or keeping you from the like, when it's just like, oh, that life is really just an image. Like what you do is neither right or wrong, but like maybe a way to get into something.
So another hallmark of the Hipster Runoff was its deadpan writing style. When I was rereading your blog, one of the things that stuck out to me was the power of understating a situation by reducing it to its core truths, which, were sometimes uncomfortable, but you would say what we were all thinking. Stylistically, this reduction of yours was combined with you using AIM speak to further infantilize the writing, almost like a bimbified Jonathan Swift. What really struck me about this writing was how effective it was, because it didn't rely on a massively complicated infographic flowchart to get its point across. Sometimes people are just horny for an attractive celebrity, and that's a big part of why they have so many fans. Sometimes the shit we're told is brave and groundbreaking is just a boring and, is just a pandering attempt, and deep down we all know it. These days there's such an enormous woke content industry built around over intellectualizing every fucking mundane consumer decision to either be the best or worst thing you can do individually, that it was nice to be reminded that, oh yeah, sometimes it's not that deep, fam. Given the more unwoke and hilarious aspects of your blog. I definitely see you as like a spiritual godfather to what people call the dirtbag left today. Do you ever wonder how your blog would have played out in today's cultural climate?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I mean, I don't know if it could have, like, I don't think it could have existed, like, even from a, like, I would be canceled. Like, you know, I've probably written certainly like things that are homophobic, racist, body shaming, you know, and I certainly, you know, I'm not apologizing for it, but like, I'm not sure. Like, I was still tied to like you know, what the internet looked like before Blogspot, right? So
Right.
there was kind of this like roasting, or
You mean like forum culture?
forum culture, even like Perez Hilton. Remember when that was like a big, the ethical debate on the internet?
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that, because your blog took on Perez Hilton characteristics more later, it seemed, than in the start.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure. I also don't know, like, it just seems harder. I think when we first emailed, I think like you liked my blog, and it's like no one can even say that they like anything anymore for anything. Like, to get like, what do you think your Instagram account is like bros who like are sociopaths who want to like share memes? You know, like I know you have like your art justice. I think, I mean, I've only looked at like the top 8 posts before it cuts off, but like what do people want from all this content, man?
What, from my content?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's a good question. I think that people probably recognize that like the art world as it exists does not accurately portray culture in any meaningful sense. That like this thing that's supposed to be the tip of the spear of the avant-garde doesn't really talk about or address anything that's relevant, other than like, I suppose, distilling it into like a painting or a ceramic in the most like basic, condescending, liberal forms possible. So I think to some extent people have an expectation of art and what it should do and what its role is in culture, and then they see the art world as it's been kind of like hijacked by, you know, billionaires who are looking to use it as a money laundering operation, and see that art is, you know, as it exists through museums and galleries today, is largely irrelevant. So I think that might have something to do with it, or that might just be my own projection into it. You know? I mean, people might want something else from me. I don't know.
No, but it is funny just to think of like when you list some of this stuff, it's like, it sounds like you have like a purpose in what you're doing, and like that ultimately drives you. And then I can just think of like, maybe even towards the end, I was just like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I'm just going to be irresponsible and post like some nonsense about a woman's body. You know, like on some days I could probably see that that's just what I did. And it's like, that's going to get hits. Like, it's like, oh, there's a new Animal Collective MP3. I guess I have to post it. Like, I'm just, you know, so it's like, it is interesting.
Well, I think maybe what I'm hinting at here is that like what you were doing was saying like you would take I don't know, I'm trying to think, like, you know, a Kat Dennings nude leak and be like, you know, wow, this is what everybody wanted, or something like that. Like, wow, everybody's very horny over this. And then I think the standard today would be like, wow, here's 5,000 words about how actually this is the most empowering thing possible. So it's like both articles are using the nudes as like the way to sell the traffic. It's just that one is maybe, in your case, I think a more direct explanation of what's occurring. And then I think the standard now is to graciously over intellectualize what exactly is the motivation for your average viewer.
Yeah. And then I just think also like I was a pre-Gawker blog, if Gawker's the extreme example of what, posting up somebody's private video and like the larger consequences behind whatever the hell, whoever is to blame for that. I don't know. It's interesting just like that, like, whereas I could say like, that was just a different internet, man. Like he just posted Hulk Hogan's penis and like, that's just what everyone did.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, there's obviously larger forces than that and humans on the other side of it. So, it's interesting.
Definitely. So this deadpan writing style that I was mentioning before, I think it had a pretty massive influence on what was once called alt-lit, a creative writing genre roughly from 2009 to 2015 that inspired an endless sea of people to, make zines where they would describe pretty mundane aspects of their everyday life, from lunch or texting habits or whatever. And they would do it in a style similar, I think, to the one that you kind of pioneered with the Hipster Runoff. It might have just been a coincidence, but alt-lit seemed to disappear as a broader movement around the same time that you retired from Hipster Runoff. Do you have any thoughts about what alt-lit was or what happened to it?
No. Like, I think I was always interested. I've never read a Tao Lin book. I'm sure You've
never read a Tao Lin book?
No, I mean... I haven't read many books. Like I feel like my brain is just optimized for scrolling.
I mean, I don't read many books.
Yeah.
I feel like I probably read a Tao Lin book.
Yeah.
When people were saying that you were Tao Lin.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he seems pretty talented. Like some people like really just have a gift to do that, and then I guess it's just I don't know. Somehow Bob Dylan is culturally relevant, but he could have just been some guy. I don't know. I don't really know much about alt-lits, but it's just another attention economy. And like somehow that attention economy didn't get amplified, whether it deserved to or not. And there's probably talented people not named Tao Lin in it as well,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, maybe speaking of this attention economy, that's what I wanted to ask you about next. So right now, it seems like we've been at a stage, even for a while now, going back to when you were running HRO, where the culture industry isn't really set up to create anything of like lasting importance because the battlefield shifts so rapidly that, all these like art exhibitions or albums or alt-lit chapbooks are really just a pretense to establish people as personal brands that, that viewers can pool their support around. And the things these brands are capable of is creating conflicts with each other. And these conflicts are effectively the real content because they clearly stake out the brands and fan base's interests in opposition to each other. So like head to head on social media, a popular influencer and the New York Times Twitter accounts are competitors for attention. But once the influencer enters into a conflict, then their roles become complementary because the media is able to tell the narrative of how the influencer's conflict unfolded in a way that the influencer can't. So like, take Logan Paul, for example. This guy is making shitty videos. They get hundreds of millions of views, but the media is indifferent to him. He goes and takes a video of a suicide in a forest. People go after him. A conflict arises. And then Logan gets endless media coverage. Your position in the music industry was unique because you were both a media source through HRO and an influencer as Carl's, which meant you were able to create your own conflicts and then use those to drum up traffic on your blog. Can you talk a little bit about this ingenious strategy and what your thoughts are looking back on the supposed animosity between you and Best Coast or Bon Iver or Lana Del Rey or any of the other classic HRO beefs?
Yeah, I mean, no, I guess that's what happens, huh? I guess hindsight's 2020, but yeah, I think just like these, I feel like maybe if anything, maybe like one post isn't going to like make anyone remember you, but maybe these like narratives are the ones that kind of ground people in like, oh yeah, I remember when I don't know, when Logan Paul was in the Suicide Forest, or when he became
Right.
when he became a boxer or something. Like, I don't know, even yeah, I just think maybe it was just funny also that it was like clearly not happening. Maybe was the other thing. Like, this is completely not a thing. Like even
Well, that was your tone. It
one
was like
time
you were drumming it up.
like even like yeah, just I have a memory of like my program manager at Sirius. He was like, you know, he's been in the music industry for a long time, and he just pulled up like my site and was like, alt celebs. That's so funny. Like, that's like, does that even exist? Or, you know, like, I don't know. Sorry if I'm plateauing here or something mentally. I'm just
No.
unscrambling my DNA or something.
As a break in the record here, I only have 2 more questions
Okay, cool.
left, Carlos. So don't feel like
No,
you're here
I'll
for
I'll
the
give it
rest of
my
your
all.
existence.
No, I'm content. I'm just trying to give you quality content.
Oh no, yeah, you are. You're doing great. I think it's in rereading Hipster Runoff, those quote unquote conflicts that you had, they just seemed like silly little, like, oh, go suck a dick or something like that, you know, for Best Ghost or whatever it was. Like it didn't seem like these were like earth shattering like cancellations or something like that. It was just like a silly, I don't know, like go fuck yourself type thing. But what I'm saying is that you, as the blog, were able to then recirculate that stuff and be like, bombshell,
Yeah.
like Buzz Band goes crazy on
Yeah.
Carlos or something, which I think was like maybe a fun satirization of the tendency of, you know, buzz media to over sensationalize. And
Yeah. No, I mean, but then even I feel like maybe an overall tone that I keep maybe going back to is just like remorse of just like, it is kind of ridiculous to think of like Bon Iver or like even a Best Coast, like just like, man, was I really just like ruining their day with this? Like, much like a teen can commit suicide from like the impact of like social media or something, like even if I was causing some damage, like even if I and the majority of people don't think that it's like bad, is it bad, right? Like, I feel like that's the ethics of like the ongoing internet. And it's just like, I think even in today's internet, if you accept there is no divide between the internet and reality, then like ethically it is bad or something, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, not that I'm agree with that, but it's it feels like that is kind of what is the internet is a direct representation of reality or something.
Well, I think that I think people's willingness to be combative with you was in some ways mirroring like the tone of the blog itself. Like, would somebody like that tell Pitchfork to go suck a dick if they gave them a 6.2 or something like that? You know, I mean, I'm sure a Pitchfork like 6 would have a much graver implication for their, you know, economic security, like in terms of the number of records they'll sell, you know, that year. Like, but you, I suppose, just like maintained this kind of atmosphere where it was permissible to be lighthearted and riff or joke or
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Fuck with each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it goes back to the being anonymous. Like, was it fair or not? Right? It's like, especially when it bleeds over into like news or something like that, versus like then there were just like think pieces or MP3 posts, and then, you know, just like what it was just a very unique like media time where like that was able to be monetized.
So along the lines of this animosity that we're describing, I want to talk about your own fan base, because Hipster Runoff is probably where, you know, I first became familiar with the phenomenon of hate reading or hate following something. And you said something similar in an email where, you know, you said, I'm quoting you, you know, just a random thought, like the internet is such a weird place now where no one even acts like they like things anymore. It seems like even good ideas or content creators, artists, podcasts, they all build audiences, but the audiences are focused on formulating nuanced disqualifications of why they're above the content, but still somehow in a consumption pattern they can't escape. End quote by you, Carlos. I think this is a really accurate view, especially if you've ever been on the Reddit pages of any of the popular leftist podcasts. I think this observation of yours also describes the opposite of this podcast, where I just want to, fanboy out. But where do you think this desire to continue following something you spend so much time resenting or even publicly criticizing comes from?
Man, I think maybe we just have too much like shame and guilt or something. And even like maybe there's just something of a self-hatred for your own like consumer culture. If you identify as like left and woke, it's like, I mean, you're kind of like acknowledging that you're striving to be a better, more informed person, but then you're just like negating what you listened to and dedicated your time to and learned. And like, so you're really just tethered to nothing. And then even like, and I had a friend talking about like how we really just don't really have any belief systems. Like we rely more on psychological concepts like ego and like stuff like that. And, I just think that we're kind of constructing this person and that's just built upon what you don't like or what you're trying. I'm trying not to eat meat. I'm trying to cut, and eventually you just really can end up pretty hollow despite having all of this great information that bypassed through you or something.
Yeah. I mean, my feel towards that is like, there's two different versions where one is like from the perspective of a content creator, which like I felt jealousy looking at Hipster Runoff. Like I was like, oh my God, Carl's beat me to it. I'll never be able to do this bit as good as him. He's taken my ability to ever do this type of bit away from me. So, I probably in my own mind came up with some bullshit excuse for like, why like, oh, actually Hipster Runoff isn't that good, as a way of like consoling myself as a content creator for why, I actually shouldn't have made this before Carl's. It's basically just criticism as a cope.
Yeah, it's funny. Just like you say that, but it's like, not that I'm a YouTuber with 10 million subscribers, but it's funny to see like a 17-year-old making videos and thinking of like, man, that's going to be a hard one, like to navigate your own happiness when everything is so like metrics driven and, just certain aspects of like the eventuality of like change. Like you're not going to be on the recommended page anymore, or, like, even like a Jake or Logan Paul, it's like, they're gonna, some people have to TikTok now, is like kind of the way it's like, damn it, I have to post on Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok now, it's just like, so, it's like so funny to think about, like, I don't like, can you like, I don't know. You identify as an artist who happens to like have a content platform, but can you be like a content creator and be like healthy or something? If you really only see the internet as like, these are platforms, I need to get like attention on them, and what I do is just like a product of contemporary times versus like being grounded in something else seems like much more sustainable.
Well, I wanted to go back to what you were initially describing there. And I think it actually even goes further back to some of the stuff that you were talking about in Hipster Runoff, which was that you would end a lot of your posts on, you'd almost like tee up the comment section on this thing where you'd end on this refrain like, should I just end this blog, y'all? Is this even relevant anymore? Because, there's no point to being a hipster unless you're hip. It requires this constant updated stream of consumption. And, that's why I never understood the like Adbusters takedown of hipsters, because they always positioned them as like the fail sons of punk rock or the Situationists or some transgressive movement. But hipster isn't like a creative strategy, it's a consumer strategy. Like being a hipster is basically being a metrosexual who watches prestige TV and like listens to Pitchfork, best new albums. Like, so, if you've entrusted this podcast or, in your case, this blog or whatever to be your operating system, to be this source of your perpetual updates, you're always going to be at their mercy for whatever the next hot take is, that you internalize as your own. It's kind of like this defensive consumer position that I think naturally breeds hostility over time, because it's like, it's like a can't live with them, can't live without them situation or something.
Yeah, it's like TV can only be so good. Like everything's really good. Like just I don't know. Just everything's pretty good, but you probably just hate yourself.
So you have to find some like nuance and like, oh, but this one's not so good in this way.
Yeah, right. They're like, yeah. I mean, I thought that Breaking Bad was the best, but then I went back and watched The Wire. But Succession, it's all the same. And then it's with episodes and with websites and even lifespans of websites. You're just left back with yourself, and it's like you could have just read an encyclopedia instead to get generally the same information that you got.
So, okay. Well, I feel instead of reading an encyclopedia, I feel like the two ways out of this loop that we're describing, this consumption loop, are either, you make your own culture, you derive some happiness from expressing yourself, even if it's imperfect, or you like default on your hipster loans and you just like allow yourself to not constantly be updated, so that your relevance operating system kind of falls into disrepair, which is, I think, what the end of Hipster Runoff was for a lot of people. Can you talk about what was going on with the blog leading up to that point, and what made you want to end it once and for all?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe like I was probably just burnt out with the amount I needed to post. I probably, like, if I wanted it to be a media company, I probably identified as an artist in the moment, whether or not that was valid or not. But just like, I'm doing this because I'm pure or something. And then there were all these other goals of like growing and selling advertising and, the shifting landscape of like, oh yeah, you're going to have to start putting videos on the top of your page. And it's like,
right.
Or, probably just different challenges for like what the bandwidth of the internet was about to allow, that I like was too scared to confront, too lazy to confront, or too tethered into like what I believed was authentic to continue to go forward, So, I mean, it's certain,
because you had mimicked a lot of the things of like a media platform. You created the Mainstreamer, the Museum of Modern Alt. Like you had these kind of like content silos, like, as you would expect from like a motherboard or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think, I was probably just burnt out. And, I guess maybe the larger questions about existing as a content creator, and then with the relevance processor or whatever you called it, like, was it probably going to be sustainable for like being a decent person, if that's important to you? I guess probably not. I mean, right. They're like, you're just in these ridiculous ecosystems, or like, like when I'm sure you meet somebody who values you for like what you do, and they're like super into the world that you're in, and they think that like you have answers, or like they're by osmosis are getting something by being in your presence, or and it's like, it really, maybe that wasn't a validating thing to me. I guess like, just, I don't know. It was good. And I probably should have been more like grateful for the business opportunity side of it, honestly. Cause it's like one time I was chatting with somebody, and they were like, I was like, I wonder what the perfect job is. And then they said back, Hipster Runoff. And then I just like think back of like laying in bed, putting Helvetica on a photo, and it's like,
did that just become like mundane to you after a while? Was that just like, did that feel like it was an office job at a certain point?
I mean, I think so. I think it was just, I think so. I think just maybe even like if like, I mean, maybe as an artist, like you're really like, whether life is meaningless or meaningful or not, you're like driven to maybe like change these connections between people or like change the way people think. And maybe that's a validating part of being alive or like, or even willing something into existence. And then it's like, oh, wait, I did the attention thing for like 5 years and everything's the same in general. You know, kind of that realm of like being in content cycles versus like being immersed in real life or something. Like I was still sectioned off from like seeing reality or something like that.
Well, how do you see things now? How different is life now?
I mean, different. I feel, I mean, honestly, I feel just like it's odd just to be defined by something that you did for 5 years. And it's like, it's cool that it meant something to some people, you know, however much that is. But, you know, now that everyone hates everything, I hope that they're able to, I hope that everyone gets to distance them.
You're talking to a fan now.
I know, I'm kidding. No, but like, this is the joke. Like, I hope everyone's able to get the distance that they need to construct themselves from what they used to be into. Okay. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I think, yeah, it is funny. Just sometimes I'll have like thoughts of like, what would it look like now with like wellness or like, you know, home goods or just various, all I am is evolving in this consumer culture that I'm
you could have a Q silo.
You know, I mean, totally. And it's like, but then I'll think of it for more than like 5 posts and I'm like, that seems pretty miserable, honestly. like, you know, it's, and then even if, you know, just like, will that value system really, like, it's something I feel like I've already lived. And then, you know, it's, yeah, you know, it was fun. But, you know, it's just like, I feel like,
it sounds like you have a healthy distance from it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I probably had some like weird, not weird, but just like depressive or defining. And then even like, I don't know, I'm sure you know people in your life who have like had to, even somebody like, oh yeah, he went back and became a journeyman electrician. And you're like, wow, that actually takes a lot of willpower to like do a second thing or something. And you're like, I feel like those types of stories are just so much more interesting or something, like, or like more in tune with the version of reality that's like, we're all looking at screens and like being told that that's what's happening in the world. And it's like, we don't really have enough compassion to even be nice to people on a daily basis or something, right? It's like,
sure. So final question, Carlos, is just about the legacy of the Hipster Runoff, which is maybe kind of what we've already been talking about. Obviously, its memory lives on in the hearts of countless millennials, but the blog itself is only visible through broken links on the Wayback Machine and through the various websites that publish think pieces about it over the years. Do you have any plans to make a public archive or a book or a movie or anything for us fans to feed our nostalgia for nostalgia for nostalgia?
No. No, I mean,
fuck all y'all.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it happened. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's kind of like I'm sure you have like, everyone can remember a computer that they used in like 8th grade or something. And it's like probably full of like MP3s and downloads and like JPEGs of pornography or something. And it's just like, it's just gone, you know, sometimes. You just have to know it's like it's just not decomposing in a dump somewhere, you know? But I mean, that doesn't mean it wasn't real or something, right?
Well, yeah, it was real to me. Carlos Perez, thank you for breaking your hiatus and talking with me. I really appreciate it.
You're a good person and you deserve to be happy.
Okay.
You do.
Thank you. All right, folks, that's the end of episode 2. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.